There are stories that shimmer on the surface, dazzling us with fame, fortune, and the illusion of perfection. Then there are stories that run deeper, stories that echo in the quiet spaces between applause, stories that remind us that even the brightest stars cast the longest shadows. Matt Damon's life is one such story, a journey marked not just by cinematic triumphs and red carpet moments, but by heartbreak, loss, and the kind of resilience that can only be forged in the fire of adversity. At 55, Matt Damon stands as a testament to the paradox of success. The higher you climb, the more fragile the air becomes, and the more profound the cost of every step. Before the world knew his name, before the Oscars and the billion-dollar franchises, Matt Damon was just a boy in Cambridge, Massachusetts, learning to navigate a world that seemed determined to test him from the very beginning. His childhood was not the stuff of Hollywood fairy tales. The son of a stockbroker father and a professor mother, Matt's earliest memories are tinged with the ache of absence. When he was just 2 years old, his parents' marriage dissolved quietly, without the drama of shouting matches or slammed doors. Instead, there was only the sound of footsteps fading down a hallway, a silence that would linger in Matt's heart for years to come. His mother, Nancy, became the anchor in a world that often felt adrift. She moved Matt and his older brother, Kyle, into a communal house shared with 6 other families. Privacy was a luxury they couldn't afford, and money was always tight. Yet, in the midst of scarcity, Nancy created a sanctuary of learning and imagination. She graded papers by lamplight, her hands smelling of chalk and coffee, while her sons slept in the next room. Books replaced toys, and ideas became companions. Matt learned early that intellect was not a shield against pain, but a tool for survival. "You're not special for being smart," his mother would say. "You're responsible for what you do with it." Those words became his compass, guiding him through the maze of childhood loneliness and longing. Even as a child, Matt felt the weight of what was missing. He watched other children leave school hand in hand with their fathers and understood, without words, the ache of absence. The lesson was cruel, but clear. If life would not give him protection, he would have to create it himself. Acting became his refuge, a way to rewrite reality, to make broken families whole and endings kind. On stage, he could become anyone, escape anything. His drama teacher, Jerry Specca, saw the spark in him, the way he hesitated before speaking, then poured his soul into every line. For Matt, acting wasn't about applause. It was oxygen. But even as he found his voice on stage, the silence at home remained. The walls were thin, the nights long, and the sense of being an outsider never quite faded. Cambridge was a city of privilege and intellect, but for a boy without status, it could be unkind. Matt learned to find belonging in creation, to turn rejection into discipline. At 16, he wrote his first short screenplay, not for fame, but to imagine a world that didn't hurt. Each setback hardened him, not into bitterness, but into resolve. He learned that pain could be reshaped, that in the smallest spaces, he could discover infinite worlds. By the time he reached Harvard, Matt was still quiet, still burning with a need to prove himself. He studied English literature, but his real education happened in the margins, scribbling story ideas late at night, chasing auditions between classes, splitting sandwiches with roommates. When money ran out, the world saw a privileged student at an elite university. Matt felt like an outsider, fighting to belong, haunted by the fear that he was always one misstep away from losing everything. It was in those long, hungry nights that the seed of Good Will Hunting was planted, story about a lost genius searching for connection, written by a young man who was doing the same. The journey from Harvard's hallowed halls to Hollywood's relentless glare was anything but smooth. Matt Damon, just 12 credits shy of graduation, made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He left Harvard to chase a role in Geronimo, an American Legend, believing it would be his breakout moment. Instead, the film faded into obscurity, and Matt found himself in Los Angeles with no degree, no safety net, and no guarantee that his dreams would ever materialize. The city glittered with promise, but for Matt and his best friend Ben Affleck, it was a daily struggle to survive. They shared a run-down apartment, their fridge mostly empty, their hopes stretched thin but never broken. Nights were spent hunched over a battered typewriter, the click of keys echoing their heartbeat as they rewrote the script that would become Good Will Hunting. Every rejection letter was a bruise, every sleepless night a test of faith. Hollywood didn't care about heart or honesty, only about profit, but Matt and Ben refused to give up. They turned hunger into discipline, failure into endurance. "We were broke, but we had a story," Matt would later say. That story, born from desperation and belief, would change everything. When Good Will Hunting finally broke through, it didn't just open doors, it blew them off their hinges. Overnight, Matt Damon went from struggling actor to Hollywood's golden boy, clutching an Oscar in his trembling hands. But success, as he quickly learned, is a strange kind of storm. It lifts you up, dazzles you, and then dares you to stay upright in the wind. The applause was real, but so were the doubts. Whispers followed him everywhere. Did he really write the script? Was he just lucky? Would Hollywood chew him up and spit him out like so many before? Matt poured himself into his work, determined to prove he belonged. He stood beside legends like Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan, dove into darkness with The Talented Mr., and redefined action cinema as Jason Bourne. The training was brutal, torn muscles, bruised ribs, endless exhaustion, but Matt insisted on doing his own stunts, wanting every moment to feel real. Audiences saw a hero who never missed a shot. They didn't see the ice packs, the painkillers, the quiet recovery after each shoot. The Bourne franchise brought in over $1 billion, but the toll on Matt's body and spirit was immeasurable. Fame, he discovered, is both a gift and a curse. It brings opportunity, but also scrutiny. Every word, every silence, every misstep is magnified. The boy who once dreamed of acting in a tiny dorm room now stood on the mountaintop of fame, only to find the air was thinner there. The joy of creation was replaced by the grind of expectation. Every film had to win. Every performance was judged. Every silence misunderstood. He was the man everyone saw, and yet no one really knew. And then, as quickly as it had come, the dream began to fracture. Elysium barely broke even. The Great Wall was a critical and financial disappointment, drawing accusations of whitewashing and leaving Matt to weather a storm of headlines. He chose not to respond publicly, understanding that sometimes silence speaks with more dignity than defense. But the criticism stung, not because of pride, but because deep down, he feared there might be truth in it. Fame had given him everything, but it had started to take pieces back. Public scrutiny tested him again and again. During HBO's Project Greenlight, a conversation about diversity drew widespread attention and criticism. Matt apologized, admitting he should have listened more. Later, his comments during the Me Too movement sparked backlash, and he responded with humility, acknowledging his need to be more aware. Even a cryptocurrency campaign, meant to support his clean water nonprofit, became a lightning rod when the market crashed. Through every stumble, Matt kept learning, kept growing, kept moving forward. But the greatest tests were not public, they were private. The heartbreaks that never made headlines, the losses that left scars no camera could capture. The pain of losing friends, the ache of love found and lost, the relentless pressure to be more than human. Through it all, Matt Damon endured. Not because he was unbreakable, but because he was willing to break and begin again. His story is not one of flawless victory, but of resilience in the face of heartbreak, a reminder that even legends bleed. For all the world's fascination with Matt Damon's career, the true heart of his story lies in the quiet spaces between the headlines, the relationships that shaped him, the love that both healed and hurt, and the friendships that left indelible marks on his soul. Hollywood is a place where connections are often fleeting, but for Matt, the bonds he formed were lifelines, anchoring him through the storms of fame and failure. In 1997, as Good Will Hunting catapulted him into the spotlight, Matt found himself swept up in a romance that seemed almost scripted for the screen. Minnie Driver, his co-star, became more than just a colleague. She was a spark of calm in the chaos, a reminder that even in the glare of the cameras, something genuine could bloom. Their relationship unfolded quietly at first, shared jokes between takes, long walks through winter streets, phone calls that stretched into the early hours. For nearly a year, their lives intertwined, young and hopeful, impossibly alive. But fame has a way of turning private moments into public property. The movie's success magnified everything: the smiles, the silences, the smallest gestures. What had been theirs alone became fodder for tabloids and talk shows. During an interview, Matt, overwhelmed and unguarded, said something that the world took as a goodbye. The words, once spoken, could not be taken back. Within hours, their relationship was dissected by strangers, the intimacy they'd built reduced to headlines and speculation. The end came quietly, not with anger, but with distance. Years later, both would speak of each other with grace and gratitude, their brief love story lingering as a bittersweet memory, proof that some connections, however fleeting, leave a mark that time cannot erase. After Minnie, Matt's heart found solace in another kindred spirit, Winona Ryder. Introduced by mutual friends, their relationship was a refuge from the relentless noise of Hollywood. They spent afternoons hidden in bookstores, evenings driving nowhere, hands brushing over dog-eared pages and radio static. To the world, they were a golden couple. To themselves, they were simply two people learning to breathe again. But as Matt's career demanded more and Winona sought peace away from the spotlight, their worlds began to drift apart. There was no dramatic ending, just a gradual fading of light, a gentle letting go. Years later, when asked, both would speak only with kindness, their love remembered not for its ending, but for the peace it brought in a world that rarely allows for quiet. It wasn't until 2003, in the most unexpected of places, a Miami bar, that Matt Damon found the kind of love that would last. Luciana Barroso was not a movie star, not part of the Hollywood machine. She was grounded, kind, and real. Their connection was immediate, built not on red carpets or premieres, but on laughter, honesty, and the small moments that make up a life. Within 2 years, they were married in a private ceremony, far from the glare of paparazzi. Matt adopted Luciana's daughter, Alexia, as his own, and together they built a family that grew to include 3 more daughters. For Matt, marriage was not a fairy tale, but a partnership, one that required work, patience, and daily acts of faith. Fame never sleeps, but marriage needs silence. There were years when his career pulled him across continents, when distance threatened to unravel what they'd built. But Luciana kept the family grounded, and Matt learned to prioritize home over headlines. He skipped award shows to attend school plays, called home before every major shoot, and found joy in the ordinary rituals of family life. "Marriage isn't about finding perfection," he once said. "It's about choosing the same person, even when it's hard." In a world where promises fade like film credits, Matt Damon chose to stay, to believe that what he had was worth the work. Yet even the strongest love cannot shield us from loss. In August 2014, Matt lost a friend who had changed his life forever, Robin Williams. Their bond, forged on the set of Good Will Hunting, was more than professional. It was a meeting of souls. Robin's wisdom, humor, and kindness became a guiding light for Matt, a reminder that success means nothing without empathy. When Robin passed, the world mourned, but for Matt, the loss was deeply personal, a silence that would echo for years. The loss of Robin Williams was a wound that never fully healed, a reminder that even the brightest laughter can hide the deepest pain. For Matt Damon, Robin was more than a mentor. He was a friend who believed in him before the world did, who offered wisdom not just about acting, but about life itself. On the set of Good Will Hunting, Robin's presence was a source of comfort and inspiration. He taught Matt that the applause isn't what fills you. It's the people who stand by you when the world goes quiet. After Robin's passing, Matt found himself returning to those lessons, repeating Robin's words to his own daughters, to friends, sometimes just to himself: be kind. You never know who needs it most. But grief, as Matt would learn, is not a single event. It is a companion that walks beside you, sometimes quietly, sometimes with unbearable weight. In 2017, another loss struck even closer to home. Matt's father, Kent Damon, passed away after a long battle with cancer. The man who had once seemed distant in Matt's childhood became, in his final years, a source of quiet strength and reconciliation. Their relationship, once marked by absence, was transformed by forgiveness and understanding. Matt spent those last months by his father's side, not as a movie star, but as a son, listening, remembering, letting go. When Kent died, there were no headlines, only the hush of family breathing through heartbreak. In the months that followed, Matt carried his father's presence in small, deliberate ways, in the calm before he spoke, in the patience behind every answer, in the humility with which he faced both success and failure. These losses changed Matt Damon, softening the edges of ambition, deepening his sense of purpose. He began to speak less about fame and more about values, kindness, humility, family. He cooked breakfast for his daughters, forgave faster, laughed easier, and loved quieter. The measure of his life was no longer the size of the audience, but the depth of his relationships. To the world, Matt Damon remained an icon. To himself, he became a man defined not by what he achieved, but by how he endured, how he loved, and how he said goodbye. Yet the tragedies that shaped Matt's life were not only emotional, they were physical as well. The demands of his craft left scars that no one could see. In 1996, determined to bring authenticity to his role as a soldier addicted to morphine in Courage Under Fire, Matt starved himself, ran daily until his legs burned, and dropped nearly 40 pounds in just a few months. The transformation won praise, but the cost was steep. His body struggled to recover, and for years, he needed medication to regain his health. "I did it for art," he once said quietly. "But I wouldn't do it again." The discipline that made him a star also left him vulnerable, a reminder that some roles never leave your bones. As the years passed, the physical toll of decades in Hollywood became impossible to ignore. The action scenes, the long shoots, the relentless travel, all left their mark. By his mid-50s, Matt's body ached in ways that could not be ignored. His back tightened, his knees protested, and sometimes his reflections surprised him, the same eyes, but framed by time. He laughed about it, calling it the rent I pay for doing what I love. But beneath the humor was a quiet acknowledgement of the price of success. It was Luciana who saw through the silence, who pulled him back from the edge when exhaustion threatened to consume him. She reminded him that real life isn't measured in success, but in presence. With her support, Matt learned to rest again, to breathe again, to find balance in a world that rewards excess. He began to meditate, to cook with his daughters, to treat his body with the care it deserved. The man who once punished himself for a role now understood that strength isn't about what you endure, it's about what you understand. Through every heartbreak, every loss, every scar, Matt Damon discovered a truth that eludes so many. Greatness is not about being unbreakable. It is about being brave enough to break and still choose to begin again. His story, at 55, is not just one of tragedy, but of transformation, a journey from pain to purpose, from silence to song. As Matt Damon entered his 50s, the world saw a man at the pinnacle of his career. An actor with a net worth estimated at $170 million, a string of box office hits, and a reputation for both talent and integrity. But beneath the surface, Matt's priorities had shifted. The hunger for acclaim that once drove him had been replaced by a quieter ambition to build a life defined not by headlines, but by meaning. The spotlight, once intoxicating, now felt like a distant echo. What mattered most was not the applause, but the laughter of his daughters, the warmth of family dinners, the peace found in ordinary moments. Matt's homes reflect this transformation. In Brooklyn Heights, his penthouse rises above the East River, a sanctuary of glass and light, where mornings begin with coffee and the sound of his children's laughter. Across the country, in Pacific Palisades, his ocean view mansion is a place of calm, filled with family photos, children's drawings, and the quiet hum of daily life. And in Bedford, New York, his countryside estate offers a retreat from the world, a place where Matt can read by the pond, walk with his daughters through the orchard, and remember what it means to simply be present. These are not just houses. They are chapters in a story of healing, each one a testament to the life he has chosen to build. Despite his wealth, Matt's life is marked by restraint. There are no ostentatious yachts, no gilded palaces, no private islands, only what brings balance and joy. His most extravagant possession, a modest Gulfstream jet, is used not for luxury getaways, but for charity missions, premieres, and quick returns home. Luxury, he once said, isn't distance. It's being close to the people you love. This philosophy extends to his work as well. Matt is deeply involved in philanthropy, co-founding org to bring clean water and sanitation to millions around the world. He supports Feeding America, the ONI campaign, and Not on Our Watch, quietly donating millions through family foundations. For Matt, the real work happens when the cameras are off, when no one is watching, and the only reward is the knowledge that he has made a difference. At home, Matt is not a movie star, but a father and husband. He cooks breakfast most mornings, helps with homework, and drives his daughters to school whenever he can. Friends say he is happiest when he is just Dad, barefoot in the garden, making pancakes on weekends, or watching the sunset from the porch. The movies may fade, but the moments around the dinner table are forever. In interviews, Matt speaks with the calm of a man who no longer has anything to prove. I've learned that success isn't about climbing higher, he says. It's about being steady where you stand. Yet, even in this season of peace, Matt Damon is not immune to the fragility of joy. Life, he knows, can change in an instant. The tragedies of the past have taught him to cherish every moment, to hold his loved ones close, to forgive quickly and love deeply. He has learned that the true measure of a man is not what the world remembers him for, but how he chooses to live when the world stops watching. The heartbreaks, the losses, the scars, they are not just reminders of pain, but of persistence, of the courage it takes to keep moving forward. Matt's story is a study in contrasts. The boy who grew up in silence, now surrounded by the laughter of family, the actor who once risked everything for a role, now choosing balance over ambition, the man who lost so much, yet found peace in the aftermath. His journey is not a straight line, but a series of rises and falls, each one shaping him into someone stronger, wiser, more compassionate. At 55, Matt Damon stands not as a flawless hero, but as a survivor, someone who has faced the darkness and chosen, again and again, to seek the light. In the end, the tragedy of Matt Damon is not that he has suffered, but that he has endured, and in enduring, has found a kind of grace that fame can never bestow. His life is a reminder that even in the shadows, there is beauty, and that sometimes, the quietest stories are the ones that move us most. If you look closely at Matt Damon's life, you'll see that the real story isn't written in the box office numbers or the awards on his shelf. It's written in the quiet moments, the ones that never make the news, the ones that reveal the true cost and the true reward of a life lived in the spotlight. At 55, Matt Damon's journey is a mosaic of heartbreak and hope, of dreams realized and dreams lost, of lessons learned in the hardest possible ways. And yet, through every twist and turn, he has managed to hold on to something rare, a sense of self that is both humble and unbreakable. There's a certain irony in the way the world views celebrities. We see the glamour, the red carpets, the magazine covers, and we imagine lives untouched by the struggles that define the rest of us. But Matt Damon's story is a powerful reminder that pain does not discriminate. The tragedies he has faced, broken family, public failures, the loss of friends and loved ones, are universal in their ache. What sets him apart is not that he has suffered, but that he has chosen to meet that suffering with honesty, with vulnerability, and with a relentless commitment to growth. Contrast is at the heart of Matt's life. The boy who once felt invisible in a crowded house now commands the attention of millions. The young man who feared he would never belong now finds belonging not in the approval of strangers, but in the embrace of his family. The actor who once pushed his body to the brink for a role now listens to its limits, honoring the lessons of age and experience. The friend who lost Robin Williams and his father within a few short years now carries their wisdom forward, teaching his own children the value of kindness, of presence, of forgiveness. Transitions have defined Matt's journey, each one marked by both loss and renewal. The end of a relationship became the beginning of self-discovery. The failure of a film became the seed of resilience. The death of a loved one became a call to live more fully, more intentionally. Through it all, Matt has learned that tragedy is not the end of the story, it is the crucible in which character is forged. The heartbreaks that once threatened to break him have instead become the foundation of his strength. There is a natural flow to Matt's life now, a rhythm that balances work and rest, ambition and acceptance. He chooses his projects carefully, no longer chasing every opportunity, but seeking roles that resonate with his values. He mentors young actors, supports causes he believes in, and uses his platform to make a difference where it matters most. At home, he is present, truly present, for his wife and daughters, savoring the ordinary joys that fame can never replace. He has learned that the greatest legacy is not the one you leave on screen, but the one you build in the hearts of those you love. The hooks that once pulled Matt toward the next big thing have softened. He no longer measures his worth by the size of the audience or the weight of the trophy. Instead, he finds fulfillment in the small victories, a family dinner, a child's laughter, a moment of quiet reflection at sunrise. He knows that peace is not the absence of pain, but the presence of gratitude. And in that gratitude, he has found a kind of happiness that is both fragile and profound. At 55, the tragedy of Matt Damon is not a story of defeat, but of transformation. It is the story of a man who has faced the darkness and chosen, again and again, to seek the light. It is the story of a father, a husband, a friend, and an artist who has learned that the true measure of a life is not how high you climb, but how deeply you love, how bravely you endure, and how gently you heal. In the end, Matt Damon's greatest role is not the one he plays on screen, but the one he lives every day, a role defined by resilience, by compassion, and by the quiet courage to begin again. So if this story has moved you, if you see yourself in the struggles and the triumphs, remember, greatness is not found in perfection, but in persistence. The heartbreaks we endure are not the end. They are the beginning of something new. And sometimes, the most extraordinary lives are the ones that choose every day to keep going, to keep loving, and to keep believing that even in the shadows, there is light.